Good morning, North Syracuse Junior High School Algebra 1 students with Mr. Douglas. This is the homework out of the packet, and I know a lot of you did Delta, and I think the Delta math is actually a little bit easier, but that's okay. I don't mind. I appreciate you doing something. And I also appreciate the folks that were not getting them right to continue getting them through on the Delta math and getting correct answers. Just trying to work your way through that so that you get to the 5 out of 5 or whatever it is on there that gives you credit for it. The other thing is this one will not have a Delta math component because they didn't have any problems that kind of matched up to what we're doing, because I broke down factoring into 3 different lessons, and this is an intermediate lesson, and they put it all together. So if it was Delta math, it would be things you can't do yet. All right, but this is the homework page out of the packet, and I just wanted to show it to you at your notes. Many of you did odds or evens, which is fine. If you did the evens, you wound up with this crazy thing. And if you look at it, we have an x to the 4th there. So when you factor that, you get an x squared and an x squared. But then this one is one of those crazy dots problems. So it would say factor completely, and you'd have to break it down into 3 binomials, one with an x squared and a -6, and the others like that. Other than that, and this one was x minus 3 times x minus 3, that would be okay. However, if it was a multiple choice answer on a test, they would probably write it like this. So you have to remember that when you have x minus 3 times x minus 3, they would write it thusly. Okay, and sliding on down, I think I gave a little bit of feedback for those that did turn it in on what it's supposed to look like. And that should get to the bottom of the page. And once again, a couple of dots problems down at the bottom. Difference of 2 perfect squares. That's the one with no middle term. Okay. And once again, it's got to be a minus sign between a perfect square and a perfect square. Okay. If this was a x to the 3rd power, we can't do that this year. You'll do that next year. And if this was 99, you couldn't factor that either. So it has to be a perfect square and a perfect square with a minus sign. Okay, so that was the homework out of the packet, and I'm going to slide this out of the way and hopefully not like blow this thing up too much. And we're going on to that next page, page 45. And once again, if you don't have your packet, this is available to you on the Google Classroom site. You can print out what you need or take some notes off of what you need. I'm going to try and keep it straight. I'm very thankful for my son who has set me up with this wonderful setup, and he's the one that's really producing this, so I'm not taking all the credit for it. He's doing a great job to get you guys information. So today we're going to do that next step, and back when we started factoring trinomials, one of the first things it said was always look for the GCF first. So the lesson today is these are going to have GCFs. So basically 99% of what we're going to be doing today is take a GCF out first and then factor it. And the question will say factor completely. That means, hey, you're probably going to have more than one step. Okay, so here's what happens. You look at it. Is there a GCF? Yes. Hey, look at that. They're all divisible by 3. And once again, this, a lot of the times, is going to be the number you're going to take out. You're going to look at that first term, and that's going to be what's going to be divided all out, so you get that 1x squared after you're done. The other thing you got to look for, is there an x there? If there's an x there, then you have to take out like a 3x. Okay, and I think we have one of those in the practice. I'm going to do 4 or 5 of these and give you an opportunity to do a few, and then homework. It's a kind of a short lesson, I think, but an important one. So we'll go through that. So once again, this one has a GCF of 3. So you divide each term by 3. 3, 3, 3, and write it down. Don't forget to write down your greatest common factor. And that gives you here, okay? So now we're going back to story time from two lessons ago. Or was it last lesson? It was last lesson. All right, and that's going to give us the factors of -6 that have a difference of 1. And the bigger one's a negative. So you're going to have the factors of 6 are 1 and -6 and 2 and -3. And obviously, since I already have this done, that's our winner, and that's what it looks like. Don't forget your GCF. One of the big issues here, you do it up here and then you forget to bring it down there, costs you a point. Okay, once again, this is a really popular type problem on the Regents exam, and as of right now, we still have a Regents exam. All right, so on the other side, you have there is no GCF. There's no common factor between 4 and 49. So what's going on here? Well, it's a dots problem. So you take the square root of the first term. Square root of 4x squared is 2x and 2x. And then the square root of 49 is 7 and 7. 1 plus, 1 minus. Yay, us. All right. So I'm going to do the ones on this page, which is a little bit of extra practice. Usually what I do is I do 2 and then you guys do the rest of the page. But I'm going to do this whole page just so you see a bunch. And then we're going to go from there and see, give you some practice on the next page. And maybe have a little conference about the page 47. And your homework's going to be 48, 49. I don't remember whether I did odds or evens, but it's not going to be all of them. Okay, and once again, this one, there is no delta, so you're going to have to do it here. And when you're doing your homework, you can either do a type it up. What I would do is write it out on a piece of paper and then type it up onto the Google form. Or you can just print it and do the work and then take a picture of it and upload the picture. I can do it either way, and once again, I can accommodate you as best you can. You show me work, I give you credit. It's a good thing. And I appreciate all the work that I have been getting, and some of you folks that weren't really homework doers are doing some work, and wow, that's really nice to see. All right, anyway, back to work. So here we are. We have an 8, a 16, and an 8. And once again, 99 times out of 100, it's going to be that lead coefficient. And this is one of those times. So our GCF is going to be 8. So you're going to divide every term by 8. And then you write down your 8. And then you write down your leftovers. Okay? That cancels and leaves you x squared. This cancels and leaves you a minus 2x. Don't forget the x. And then the last one just winds up being a 1 plus 1. Okay, and now you have the signs are the same, both are minus, and you're looking for the factors of 1 that add up to 2, and gosh, that's going to be 1 and 1. So you're going to bring down the 8, don't forget the 8, and you're going to have x minus and x minus, 1 and 1. Now, if this was a multiple choice answer, this probably wouldn't be one of your multiple choices because remember you have the x minus 1 times x minus 1. They would write it as 8 times x minus 1 squared. Done deal. Okay, sliding over to number 2. And once again, it's that lead coefficient. 4 goes into 60 and it also goes into 144. So you're going to divide all your terms by 4. Numbers are a little bit big here, so we're going to have to think about that. And I'm going to write that over here, hopefully, and it'll be on the screen. That's going to be x squared minus 15x. Please use your calculator on this. It is a little bit more difficult. And plus 36. Okay, so that means I have, just reviewing what we did, we're off screen a little bit. Oh, I am drinking my coffee, so you got my coffee here. And that was what's keeping my thing away. So I'm going to take a sip of coffee and close that back up. I need the factors of 36 that add up to 15. All right. So my factors of 36. Now, I don't think we talked about this last time. You can, if you do have an Inspire, there is a way to do this on your calculator. On your calculator, what you do, you go to your graph, and then f1 of x is equal to 36 divided by x, and then f2 of x is equal to 36 divided by x plus x. So this would give us the factors of 36, and this would be when you add across to get that 15. Okay? And I'll show you more about that next class with a picture on it. I used to have it in the packet. I haven't looked for it yet. Anyway, So I'm looking for the factors of 36. I'm just going to list them over here. And everything's negative, so I'm just going to not put the negative sign on it. So I have 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9, 6 and 6. And I'm looking for the one that adds up to 15, and that's going to be right there. So I'm going to do a 4, 2 sets of parentheses. I don't want to lose that GCF. X minus, and then 3 and 12. Now, the 12 and the 3 can be switched. Has to be minuses. 4's got to be out in front. Okay. So, oh, that was a loud noise we don't want to hear. Let's drop on down to the next one. Make sure we're well on screen. And once again, hey, we got that lead coefficient. We're going to divide that out. So it's going to be divide by 5, divide by 5, divide by 5. Now, if you tried to do this without taking out that GCF, it would be really hard. We're going to learn how to do it when the lead coefficient isn't a 1 tomorrow, or next class, whenever we drop another video in. It is a little bit more difficult, but if you try and do this, where there is a GCF without taking it out, it gets really messy. All right, so that leaves me x squared minus 7x plus 10. So we're looking for the factors of 10 that add up to 7. So factors of 10 are -1 and -10, -2 and -5. Ding, 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 ding. Bring this down. My 2 sets of parentheses. Signs are the same. Both are minus. X minus 2, x minus 5. All right. So first 3 was always that lead coefficient. This one, it's not. We need to find the biggest number that goes into both 27 and 48, because 27 doesn't go into 48. And the other thing I see here, I got an x on the end, so I'm going to have to take out an x. Now, if you're looking for the factors that these have in common, it's going to wind up being a 3. Now, there is a way to do that on the calculator. If you do number and look for the GCD, I think they call it, and you put in 27 comma 48. Don't put in the negative, just put in the 2 numbers. It'll tell you that it's a 3. Okay, so you're going to divide each term by 3x, write down your 3x, and then write down your leftovers. And that's going to give you 9x squared minus 16. Okay, so first thing I saw in this problem when I started looking at it, I saw that cube there, and we've not factored a cubed. That's why you want to, like, oh yeah, I got to take out an x. So now I'm here. You're saying, well, then you're done, right? Well, no. We have to do our favorite thing, which is dots. Okay? We're looking for the difference of 2 perfect squares. So I bring down my 3x, and I give myself 2 parentheses. Okay? And then I take my square root of the first term. Square root of 9 is 3. Square root of x squared is x. 3x in both, plus, minus. Square root of 16 is 4 and 4. Okay. Well, we're doing pretty good. Now the 2 at the bottom are both that lead coefficient again. So that's what I'm going to do on the first one. I'm going to divide through by 9. Okay. This divided by 9 thing, you don't need to show me that, but I think it's helpful. It reminds you what you're doing. And write it down. And then write down your leftovers. X squared. 81 divided by 9 is minus 9. Don't mess up your signs and don't lose your x. And then minus 10. Okay. So we're looking for the factors of 10 with a difference of 9. Hey, look, we have it right up here, only the signs are going to be different, so it's going to be -10 plus 1 to give me -9. 9, parenthesis, x plus 1, x minus 9, or x minus 10. Ooh, almost messed that up. Of course, you guys are watching me like a hawk and catching all my mistakes, and I appreciate that too. Say you wanted to check this. Well, if you wanted to check this, you go back to your original equation, the 9x squared minus 81x minus 90. You type that into your f1 of x. Then you hit the tab and you put your final answer in there and hit enter, and then compare the tables. You may not even be able to see the graph on this. I mean, you got a y-intercept of negative 90, so I'm thinking this is going to like not show up very well. But if you go to the table of values, the table of values need to match. If they don't match, you got a boo-boo, like maybe you switched your minus and your plus over here. All right, and the last one is going to be divide everything by 2. Okay, and that's going to be 2 parenthesis x squared minus 30x minus 64. Well, now you need the factors of 64 with a difference of 30. Okay, this tells me it's a plus and a minus, and it's got a big minus. Okay, once again, you could use this up here, okay, to find out those factors with the negative 64 in there, or you can just use a regular old calculator and do, well, you want the bigger one to be negative, so it's going to be 1 and negative 64, 2 and negative 32, 3 doesn't go into 64, 4 and negative 16, 6 doesn't go into 64, 7 doesn't go into 64, and then you're going to have 8 and negative 8. Okay, so this is going to be our winner. 2 and negative 32, so I get 2, and I get 2 sets of parentheses. X plus 2, x minus 32. Okay, now if they change this here from minus 30 to plus 30, that would just switch the signs at the bottom. Okay, so I'd like you guys to take a couple of minutes and go over page 46 as practice. Why don't you do the odds? Okay, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a break to do that and come back with some answers for you to check. And then we'll have a brief conversation about page 47, and that'll be it for today. All right, going to pause it so I can get my answers up. Okay, welcome back. And I'm doing a little cheat. I got my answer key up here. And once again, just looking at them real quickly. That lead coefficient, 6, needs to come out. So that's what I did. And the signs are the same, and they're both minus. And I did the division out. I just don't show you the intermediate step. That's what you get. 6 and x minus 2 and x minus 4. Number 9 was kind of a trick. It was actually, hey, what we did last class. So this is basically just signs are the same, both minus. Factors of 63 that add up to 16, and it winds up being negative 9 and or negative 7, negative 9. Sliding on down. If you note, I also have the answers to the other side. So if you were like an overachiever and you did the other side, you can fill that in. If you have any questions on stuff on the video, you can post questions on that. Or if you find another mistake, don't hurt my feelings, but I will take a look at that. And sliding on down. Well, let me do this one for you. This one usually like causes people to like sweat. Well, first of all, you see that you have a 7 here, okay? And I said before, well, if you have a variable at the end, you probably got to take it out. Well, not in this case. You just got to deal with it. And you just kind of ignore it until the end. So I'm going to take out that 7. It gives me 7 parentheses x squared minus 2xy plus y squared. I'm saying, well, that looks crazy, but really it's the exact same thing as what we did back over here with number 1, x squared minus 2x plus 1. Well, if you change that 1 to a y squared, 1 being a perfect square, that's exactly what's going on here. So you do the same thing. This is going to be the factors of 1y squared, so you're going to have a 7, you can do an x minus and an x minus, and it's basically just the factors of 1 that add up to 2, which are going to be 1, and then break this apart like we broke apart the x squared. So we have a y and a y. And remember, we have the exact same things in both parentheses. We can rewrite it with the squared on the outside. And of course, the overachievers that did this one, number 14, you take out the x first, and that leaves you x to the 4th minus 16, and that would be x, and then x to the 4th minus 16, which would be x squared. Ooh, Mr. Douglas has a mistake in his answer key. That should have a squared on it. So that's that. All right, so let's take a look at page 47 and see what we got going on there, just so we can talk about this one more time before I turn you loose. And on page 47, we have a dots problem. Okay, so you got a GCF, don't you have a GCF? What are you doing? So this is just a dots problem. So you're going to do a square root and a square root, x plus 7, x minus 7. So this one, well, first of all, it's not a trinomial, so you can't do trinomial factoring. And they just have an x in common, so you're going to factor out an x. Okay, and always look at what you have in your leftovers. Can I do anything more with that? Like if this was x squared minus 1, well, then you could do dots with it, but it isn't. Then we got another one of those x squared with y squareds. All right, once again, don't be afraid of the y squared. You're just going to break it apart like you did the x. And this is a dots problem. Okay, just doing some extra examples for you. Square root of x squared is x and x. One gets a plus, one gets a minus. Square root of 49 is 7 and 7, and the square root of y squared is y and y. Not a lot going on. Okay, so the next one only has 2 terms. Okay, so I can't do trinomial factoring. It's got a plus sign between it and no negatives anywhere, so I'm not going to be able to do dots, so this is just going to be a GCF. Okay, and if you look at it, well, first of all, it's not in standard form. All right, so I got to think about that for a second too. Maybe I'll switch it around before I do my GCF, or maybe I'll just switch it around when I write down my answer. But the greatest common factor of 8 and 32 is 8. And I can take out x squared. All right. Always remember, you got to take out as many x's as possible, which would be the lowest number of exponents available on there. Okay, and I'm going to do this one first because I want to put it into standard form. So 32 divided by 8 is 4. 4 x's take 2 away, x squared. And what's 8x squared divided by 8x squared? And don't say 0. It's going to give you a plus 1. Next one is just a GCF of 7. And once again, I'd switch the order because it's not in standard form. So I'm going to have a 7. And then I have 4y squared plus 1. So since that's a plus, you're done. And then the last one is a dots problem. You got to remember that 1 squared equals 1. So these are both perfect squares. What we have to remember is the order counts. So we're going to take the square root of the 1, and that goes in the front seat. The 1 here and a 1 here. 1 gets a plus, 1 gets a minus. Square root 8x, 8x. Okay, so that's it for today. Your homework is on those next 2 pages. It's going to be on Google Classroom. So, ready, set, go, and don't forget to turn it in. Thank you.